Hello everybody, again. You guys know me as Psych Life, and today I wanted to kind of talk about anger, aggression, hostility, and how it relates to substance use. And I wrote down all the questions that you guys had sent to me, and I hope that this video is useful for you guys. So let's start off with the first one, anger. Anger is just an emotion or a feeling. We are biologically wired to occasionally feel uncomfortable and get angry. Angry is a defense mechanism. Sometimes it's okay to feel angry. If boundaries get crossed, if you feel uncomfortable, if someone does something wrong to you, it's okay to feel upset and angry. And anger is not always a bad thing. It lets you know that there needs to be change. But anger is not good when it becomes to the next level, where you become so irritated that you lose a sense of yourself. So upset that maybe it leads you to do things that you may not normally do. And one of the things that it may lead to is aggression. And those are very related. One of them is aggression. Aggression is a behavior. Now, in the field, in psychology, they've separated aggression into two categories. I'm going to use a different color for this purposes for you guys. If this mic looks any good. Okay. They've separated aggression into two categories. One being hostile aggression, and the other one, instrumental aggression. Instrumental aggression both of them are intentional, but instrumental aggression is typically used in sports. So for example, if you're playing basketball, all of a sudden you may try and get a little physical with the person to get a rebound. Or if you're playing soccer, you might try to box that person out so you can kick the ball. That's okay. That tends to be accepted in society. The goal is either to win, or the goal is to be part of a team, and there's typically not a lot of anger involved. You can engage in aggression without getting angry. And the perfect example is sports. Hostile aggression, on the other hand, is completely different. Hostile aggression, there is a goal to harm. There's an intent to harm. There's a goal to harm, and it tends to be for the negative. You're trying to hurt the other person. A lot of times, aggression gets turned into just the physical. Aggression can be verbal. In today's society, we know that aggression isn't just physical. It's not about just hurting someone and giving them a bruise or a black eye. Verbal aggression is very real, bullying, and we see it all the time. And that can lead to catastrophic events for the future for that person. If a person is bullied when they're a kid, for example, that's a type of aggression. If they're bullied when they're a kid, it could have traumatic experiences. It can affect the rest of their life. And a lot of times the way it affects us is unconscious. And I'm going to get to that in this short video. I'm going to try to keep it under 15 minutes, kind of like the last one. But there's one more term that's very important here. And the last one is hostility. I got a lot of questions from you guys concerning this term. And in this term, I had wrote thinking process, and I think it's better to term it more as an attitude or a belief. Let's put it like that. attitude or belief. Just like in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy or theory, you have the thought process, your emotions and behavior, and they're all intertwined in a triangle. So let's write this one down. We got thoughts, behaviors, and emotions or feelings. Let's write feelings. You can have one without the, you can engage in thoughts that lead to behavior and then you have feelings, but you can also have feelings that then all of a sudden lead to thoughts that may be true or not true, but it may be very real for that person, or behaviors. You might all of a sudden be walking down the street, you find $50, you pick it up, all of a sudden you have either negative thoughts or negative feelings toward, or maybe not. Maybe you have positive thoughts. Oh, it's my lucky day. I found $50. I don't really mind if somebody else lost out on it. That's the same way this works. You can have, in this instance, let me use a different marker. You can have anger, aggression, which is in terms behavior, and hostility, which is the beliefs. Same thing, works same way. How can hostility be correlated with anger? If I have a belief system towards, let's say I have a negative belief system towards a certain group of people, it's going to unintentionally or unconsciously lead, or maybe consciously, lead into behaviors that are negative towards those people. So if I'm driving and I think that I have a prejudice against a certain group of people and they cut me off, that group of people is right next to me and they cut me off, I might go next to them and flick them off. That would be how hostility can lead to anger, because a certain attitude or belief system all of a sudden got me angry for no reason when it wasn't necessarily intentional. I think anger becomes a negative when it leads a lot of times to aggression, or it leads into us doing things or developing belief systems that aren't necessarily accurate. So I thought this was a good beginning. Since I'm going to keep this video short, I'm going to get right to your questions, okay? So here I have at mxy.g. Can aggression be good or positive? And so, why and how? Like I said, aggression can be good. It can be positive. If you're engaging in instrumental aggression and you're playing a sport, you're probably engaging in sports. People play sports a lot of times to socialize, to get active, to do some exercise, and it's consensual. Both people are agreeing to play the sport. They're both agreeing to get a little physical while playing soccer or basketball. It can be good, but it can also be a negative. If you're engaging in hostile aggression, which is you're intentionally trying to hurt somebody or intentionally trying to harm somebody, that can be a negative. There's always a better way to deal with anger than to actually try and commit some sort of physical act against somebody. At Saibuai, sorry if I butchered the name. Why do some people get angry easily and others remain calm when feeling the same problem? Oftentimes, a certain person doesn't perceive that event the same as another person. What may be traumatic for one person may not be traumatic for the other. The event isn't the trauma, it's the way the person perceives it. So what I'm trying to say is, if we're both at the park and all of a sudden we both almost get run over, maybe that sticks with you for the rest of the day and for the rest of your life. But maybe the other person just drops it and it's not a big deal. So, or that was all in the perception, or maybe that person has developed some coping mechanism. I know for a fact when I get a little bit upset or angry and it's not healthy for me, I try and blow off some steam doing exercise, or I try talking to somebody about it. I might pick up a phone and call a friend. That's always very refreshing to have a friend that you can talk to, or a professional. Next, at Breezy, Phil Harbor. Can substance abuse affect your emotions days after consumption? Absolutely. You see, your brain is an organ, and it's one organ, and it's a powerful organ. I mean, it controls the rest of your body. Your body, the reason I'm moving my hands is because my brain is sending the signal to my body. So I'm going to read you a little bit of research I wrote here. A study in the journal Substance Use and Misuse, so this is a professional journal, found a link between heavy marijuana use and high anger scores. The link got even higher the more often the user took in drugs. Just because that doesn't mean it's an end all be all. I don't want you to think that. But if I'm consuming drugs every day and all of a sudden one day I stop, my mind is expecting that drug, mentally and physically. Not only is my body expecting it, my mind's expecting it. I need that drug. All of a sudden I'll become irritable. I'll become annoyed. Emotions may arise that are uncalled for or may not make sense. And the funny thing is, the paradox about it is, you won't realize that. You won't realize that's happening unless someone points it out to you, or unless you're very, very mindful and maybe the next day you realize and you'll think back like, man, why was I so irritable? So substance use can affect your thought process, can affect your mind for days. Just because you consume drugs today, that doesn't mean that tomorrow it has no effect on you. It has an effect on you. The thing is, we don't realize it. We don't want to acknowledge it. And if we do want to acknowledge it, it happens in a way that it goes beyond our radar, below our radar. It's not conscious to us. I thought that was very important. That was a very cool research, because we all take drugs in the sense of sugar's a drug, caffeine's a drug, and of course pharmaceutical drugs. We go to the doctor, they immediately prescribe drugs. Just because Tylenol is legal here in the United States, that doesn't mean it doesn't have an effect on your brain. It does. It has a long-term effect if you consume it every day. And drugs only stop the symptoms. I think it's very important to know that. But that's a story for another video. If you want to hear more about the difference between the terms substance use, abuse, and addiction, maybe you should check out some of my other videos that I have done. But on to the next question. Thank you for that question, Breezy Phil Bar. So someone asked me at SomeBalkan05, how venting out emotion is necessary. I think venting out emotion can be necessary. It depends on how you vent it out. If you're going to vent it out through aggression, let's make it more specific. If you're going to vent it out through hostile aggression, I'm mad, so I'm going to punch a wall, that's not the best way. Research has shown that may make you feel better for a little bit, but in the long run, it doesn't solve any problems. If you're very angry and you want to engage in instrumental aggression, oh, let me play some sports to let out some frustration, that may be a little bit better. You're not trying to cause harm to anybody. But I think talking to somebody a lot of times about how the way you're feeling and validation can be helpful. And also developing coping strategies. Well, maybe what I may use as a coping strategy may not be what you use. So there's a big myth. There's a big myth when it comes to anger, that venting anger is always desirable, and it's not. People who vent their anger aggressively, people who they get angry and all of a sudden they want to let it out and they punch a wall. Like I said, it may make them feel better for now, but in the long run, all you're doing is you're developing a habit. Every time you get angry, you want to let it out by punching or aggressively. You just become better at getting angry. Your mind trains itself. It wires itself to be angry easier. And so be very careful with that. You can vent anger, you can vent your anger, but it's how you vent it. And be careful, because you don't want to develop that negative habits, and by negative I mean habits that aren't going to be beneficial for yourself. So I have another question here. How does this relate to trauma in general? And this is by Atsail Hashes. Well, this relates to trauma because if you have, I'm gonna give you an example. I have a client who their mom disappeared at a young age, and they still hold that anger in. It's actually never been addressed until recently that they started working with me. If that happens, and that anger tends to manifest in other parts of their life. So now that person, the other day he told me that one time he heard his mom's name and he couldn't hold it anymore, and he ended up slamming the book on the floor. And he didn't realize, my client, he didn't realize that anger with his mom, that unresolved conflict with his mom, that trauma from her leaving him when he was just a kid and he didn't know what was going on, he was innocent. He still has questions about that. And just hearing his mom's name made him become aggressive and slam a book on the floor. That's not a healthy way to cope, because now he's basically training his mind that every time he hears his mom's name, or anytime he thinks about his mom, hostile aggression is the way to go. And it's not, because it's not going to resolve anything. What is going to resolve it is talking to his mom, maybe asking questions, maybe writing down a letter to his mom. There's many ways to go about it depending on the client, but we got to be very careful on trauma, because trauma can lead to anger and aggression and hostility, belief systems that aren't true, or maybe really true for that person, but aren't true to the larger extent, and it could be catastrophic, and it'll appear and manifest in that person's life in other ways more than one than they even realize. Next question. Ashriya Malik. How is hostility a thought process? Shouldn't it be a behavior? Hostility, I can be hostile toward a certain group of people. Let me give you an example. In World War II, when Japan hit Pearl Harbor, all of a sudden Americans became hostile towards that one group that bombed Pearl Harbor, the Japanese. They put them in boot camps here it was taboo for a long time, but they became hostile towards this one group, when it really wasn't that group that was the problem. It was the people. It wasn't the people of Japan. It was the government. But now that negative belief systems made us believe that the Japanese that were here in the US, they could be in concentration camps. That's one example of how hostility or negative belief towards people can lead to aggression and anger. That's why I drew this triangle over here, because anger can lead to aggression and hostility, negative belief systems. Or hostility, a negative belief system, can lead to anger and aggression. It's a triangle, just as much as thoughts, just as CBT is. So be careful with that. And it's very good to differentiate the terms and understand that it's not a one leads to another, one leads to another. It's not so simple. It's very more complex than that. But I think this triangle right here can simplify it. Okay, next one. Does a person, this is Cams 1234. What's up, Cams? Does a person deciding to have a more positive outlook change the hostile thought process? You can have a more positive outlook on life. That's cool, but you need to challenge the negative belief system that you have about something. So I can go outside and I could start saying in the morning, I'm going to have a great day. I'm going to have a great day. And that sets the tempo for the rest of the day and a positive outlook on life. But if I don't challenge my negative belief systems towards a certain group, or a kid may wake up, let's take an adolescent. A kid may wake up and say, I'm going to have a great day today. And he may have a great day today. That's great. But he also has hostility towards school. He doesn't want to go to school. He thinks school is worthless. He thinks school is bad. There's nothing good that comes out of it. Yeah, he could have a good day in his eyes, but he never challenged that hostility that he has towards school. And that becomes an issue. So always target that attitude or belief, and so to end that hostility. And to target it, you can use many different ways. You can approach the problem and get help. Professional help is always good, especially if you're struggling with mental illness. At Green Supernova, does anger have any association with PTSD or anxiety? Yeah. Nothing's separate from one another. Everything's intertwined. Oftentimes, someone who engages in PTSD, or someone who is diagnosed with PTSD, their experience is very real to them. Their trauma experience. It wasn't necessarily the event. It was the way they perceived the event. And that can lead to anger and aggression and hostility. We see it all the time with the troops that come back home. The only thing is that I'm not specialized in PTSD per se, so I don't want to get too touchy on that subject. But yes, nothing's separate from one another. Can drugs really make you a better person? No. Drugs can stop the symptoms, and we all, like I said, take drugs. Sugar is a drug, okay? And we all consume it, and we don't even think twice about it and putting it in our coffee. Or caffeine's a drug. We're mixing two drugs when we put caffeine and sugar together. But society doesn't find that a problem. But it is. If you're used to drinking coffee every morning and you don't get that cup of coffee, all of a sudden you're going to start getting symptoms. Headaches, constipation, irritability. Why doesn't society see that a problem? So drugs at the right amount can be beneficial, but be careful how much drugs you take. Look, I'm going to read you another research. Researchers found that anger scores in alcoholics were much higher than those seen in those that didn't drink. This is the second study I read to you now, and this is by Substance Use and Misuse. It's a journal entry, peer reviewed. This is the second study I read to you where drug use has a correlation with aggression. Doesn't lead, there's no causation. Just because I consume drugs, that doesn't mean I'm going to get angry. No. Even drugs that are sedatives for depression. If you take drugs over a certain period of time, like a sedative, and you don't take it and you all of a sudden stop cold turkey after taking it for 2 months, you're going to be irritable. Maybe not necessarily irritable, but you're going to be engaging in unusual behaviors the next day. You're going to be feeling weird. You're going to get some sort of symptoms, psychologically or physically. Well, I kept this simple, but I hope you guys enjoyed my video, and until next time, okay guys?